So good morning, Geshe-la. So
Morning.
today I think we can just go straight. I think because it's our second class, I don't need to do a lot of introduction. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so those who joined us early, they saw that Dorje is in full swing today for the teachings. Yeah, he put himself on the cushion, so he's sitting here also. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so before we start with the prayers, just try to recall the motivation, and then maybe also based on what we discussed yesterday. So if you think about the suffering of sentient beings and then think you have to eliminate the afflictions. In order to eliminate the afflictions, you have to eliminate ignorance. And in order to eliminate ignorance, you have to have the wisdom realizing emptiness. In order to be able to have a sharp mind to realize emptiness, you have to have a stable mind as well. So you need not only the higher training of wisdom, as we discussed yesterday, but also the higher training of concentration. Then in order to accomplish a stable mind of the higher training of concentration, we need to practice a moral discipline, as we saw yesterday, right? So you need the higher training of morality. Yeah, so that's basically what we're here for. Because if you understand karma well, then you will automatically engage in virtue. Yeah, as we said yesterday, do not commit any wholesome actions. Practice virtue and subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Yeah? So that means that if you understand ignorance being the root cause of the afflictions to arise, then you also understand the need to realize emptiness. And for that purpose, you need a very sharp mind with reasoning. But if that sharp mind with reasoning is not stable enough, it cannot cut, the tree of ignorance. The roots has to get out, So for that purpose, you need high training of concentration. And we also saw that two mental factors, as we also see in our concentration meditation, alertness and mindfulness are essential. And yesterday we also discussed that to generate those or develop those two mental factors, it's easier with regard to physical and verbal behaviors than it is with regard to the mind. Yeah? It's easier not to harm another person physically than it is not to harm another person verbally. And it's easier to avoid verbal harm than it is to avoid a negative thought to a particular individual. And so that's why there's a sequence there. Yeah? So that's why we have to practice morality for that purpose, because then you train in these two mental factors. And with this morality, why do we practice morality? Because by understanding the 10 non-virtues, as we discussed yesterday. Yeah, so, and in order to get a real good understanding of negative acts and positive acts, we have to understand the law of karma. Yeah, so that's why we're here. So try to generate motivation according to those lines that in order to liberate sentient beings, you have to have the wisdom realizing emptiness. For that purpose, you have to have concentration, and for that purpose, you have to have the higher training of morality. And in order to engage in a good practice of morality, you have to understand the law of cause and effect. So that's why we're here. Yeah. Try to generate motivation for yourself. Yeah, and then the prayers we're gonna do. So then visualize in front Sakyamuni Buddha, surrounded by the masters of India and Tibet, as well as those of the other Buddhist traditions. And then surrounding yourself, you visualize all sentient beings of the 6 realms, a human aspect. And then yesterday we talked about the 3 realms, remember? The desire realm, form and formless realm. So the desire realm includes the humans, animals, spirits, hungry ghosts, hell beings. Yeah, so they have a human aspect, but they undergo individual suffering. And then the beings of the form and formless realms are the different gods and subtle form bodies, but also they have the all-pervasive compounding form of suffering. So focusing upon all that and thinking without practicing understanding karma, I will not be able to help them. So that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm going to lead them in the prayer. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhats, perfect, complete Buddha, perfect knowledge, good contact, Sagata, know the world, supreme guide of human beings to be named. Teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Bhagavan, the glorious conqueror Sakyamuni, I prostrate and make offerings, go for reference. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhats, perfect, complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and conduct, Sagata, know the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued. Teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the Bhagavan, the glorious conqueror Sakyamuni, I prostrate and make offerings, go for refuge. To the teacher, the Bhagavan, the Tathagata, the Arhats, the perfect, complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sagata, know the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued. Teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Buddha, the Bhagavan, the glorious conqueror Sakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, go for refuge. When supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you played out a seventh stride and then said, I'm supreme in this world. To you, a wise, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the three worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you prostrate. With supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you prostrate. Thus really like you, the three worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit, with qualities like a vast ocean. To you, the one count the dustness, I prostrate. The purity that frees from attachment, the virtue that frees from the lower realms, the one part, sublime pure reality, the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the only field qualified to realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community tending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any unwholesome actions. Engage in perfect wholesome actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a defective view, a butter lamp flame, an illusion, a dewdrop, a water bubble, a dream, lightning, a cloud. See all conditions as such. Though these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the full faults, and be delivered from the Sahara ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. I prostrate to the three noble, rare, sublime ones. Thus I heard at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on a virtuous mountain in Rajgir, together with the great community of monks and the great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perfection. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, to the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara: how should any son of the lineage who trained who practiced activities of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activities of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this. Correctly, I'm repeating, the beholding those five aggregates also as empty in nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Empty is no other than form, and form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition of factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stateness, not without state, not fit, and not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there's no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visible form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, no phenomena. There is no I element, and so on, and up to including no mind element and mental conscious element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, and up to including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similar, there's no suffering, origination, cessation, and part. There's no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas will lie and dwell in the perfection of wisdom. The mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifest complete awakening, not surprise, perfect, complete light, in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the non-equals, the mantra to really pacified all suffering, should be known as a truth, since not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared: Tayata, Gata Gata, Paragata, Parasamgata, Bodhisattva. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that one should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you indicated, and even Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Vanvashara Putra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara, and those surrounding there entirely, along with the words of gods, asuras, Gandharvas, and were overjoyed and highly praised, was spoken by the Bhagavan. From the holy supreme realm of Gachara, you who possess the power of clairvoyance and magic illuminations, look after practitioner like a mother for her child. So the host of the kings of the three abodes are prostrate. Akasamara sasana samaryapi, akasam. Akasamara sasana samaryapi, tayata, gata, parasam katam, bodhisattva. By the teachings of the three noble, rare, sublime ones, possessing the power of truth, may hindrances be averted, may they be eliminated, and may they be pacified. May all negative enemies and negative forces opposed to the Dharma be completely pacified. And may the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified, and may be free from harmful conditions to the Dharma and the excellence in accordance with the Dharma. And may there be spaciousness and perfect happiness here and right now. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect pure Guru. Correctly devoting to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once is greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. This life is impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be careful, to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Seeking samsaric pleasures is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain, cannot be relied upon. Recognize these shortcomings, please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teaching is keeping the Prajamokshava. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all modern migratory beings. Please bless me to see this and train in supreme bodhicitta and bear responsibility of freeing my transmigratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta, but not practice the three types of morality, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the Bodhisattva vow with great energy. Once I pacify distraction to wrong objects and correctly analyze the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified part of calm abiding and special insight. Having become a pure vessel by training in the general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping pure vows in Samaya. As I become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the two stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the Gurus who show the noble paths and spiritual friends who practice it over long lives, please bless me to pacify completely out and in the hindrances. In all my lives, never separate from perfect Gurus, may enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of stages and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Drang-vi-ra-li, ねえ Jai 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 Sangye me te huwa Joguna Daje Cheba Jo Iram Gurura Salakanyatayami Sangye Chedan Suni Sunama Janjo Pada Dani Yazuji Dagi Jesu Gibe Sunangi Dola Penje Sangye Doba Jo Sangye Chedan Suni Sunama Janjo Pada Dani Yazuji Dagi Jesu Gibe Sunangi Dola Penje Sangye Doba Jo Sangye Chedan Suni Sunama Janjo Bada Dagi Gyasu Dagi Chushi Giba Sunangi Dola Penche Sangye Doba Sho Tangi Tushin Hijo Tawa Tangi Panaji Tama Chishido Kotam Dela Chasen. Yeah. So we just read in the Foundation of All Good Qualities, it's actually very profound, short, but very profound prayer, summarizing the whole path to enlightenment. Yeah? So those who like to do a little bit more, then it's a good prayer to recite on a daily basis, because it gives you an overview of the Lam Rim. We have to get the realizations of the stages of the path to enlightenment, right? So that is not that easy, and that will take time. So in order to get the realizations, the more seeds that are planted, the bigger the harvest, right? So that means that if you recite a prayer like that on a daily basis, it's only 2 pages, 2.5 on A5. So it's not that kind of it's not after we read the last verse, achieved the state of Vajrayana, then he thought, okay, I'm going to achieve the state of Vajrayana right now. So he got up from his seat. So basically, that prayer of Foundation of All Good Qualities is very profound. Yeah. So if you read it every day, it doesn't take that much time. Or you memorize and you can recite when you walk or when you cycle, or it's a kind of a guided meditation, so to say. Yeah, and then every verse you reflect upon the meaning and you put the imprint. It becomes kind of what we call sharkom. Shar means to appear to the mind, or kind of in stages, like an overview. Yeah, it's kind of an overview meditation. Also, one text by Tijin Lobsang Jimpa, for example, is called The Glance of Meditation. Yeah, it's kind of overview meditation. We're going to do that on the 4th and 5th of July. So those kind of prayers, it's good to understand them. And then, if you do it on a regular basis, you put imprints in the mind, you see? So then the more imprints that are planted, one day it will ripen. Same for us doing Discovering Buddhism. Some aspects we understand, some aspects we don't understand yet, but at least the imprints are planted and they will ripen one day, Same when we're in the monastery, sometimes very difficult material. You don't get it in the first reading or the first teaching you attend, But then the teachers, they say, just keep going and study and analyze, reflect, and then one day it will produce an insight, right? That's the law of reality. That's the law of cause and effect relationships. And same with any other worldly form of study we're doing, or mind-boggling research. Initially, we don't understand what's going on, and the more you engage in it, you put it aside, go back again, then slowly insight comes, right? So that's a kind of slow process. So then in that same verse, it also we read, then we know where we are. Of course, we know where we are, but model 6, all about karma, where does it fit in the Lam Rim? That's very important to know. And so we started, technically speaking, traditional speaking, when we do the basic program, then we go very traditional to a particular text called the middle length Lam Rim of Lama Tsongkhapa. So it's a very kind of systematic kind of way of moving on the stage of the path to enlightenment. Yeah? So that's why it's called Lam Rim, or Lam means path, Rim means stages or gradual stages, you know. So that's why those texts are very good to read. So if you have time, then you can read texts of the Lam Rim, and then maybe for people, you know, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand is one of the required texts to be read, you know, and it also gives you the page numbers that can be read according to the subject. So that's a text that is not too elaborate and not too short, you know. So that means I find it's a very inspiring text. Why is it very inspiring? Because it's a kind of oral instruction. You know, Pabongka Rinpoche received teachings from Dalai Lama Ludrup, who was kind of the master of the Lam Rim. And it's based on 2 experiential commentaries, as well as one text by one of the Dalai Lamas. So it's based on 3 texts, and 2 of them are kind of experiential texts. It's called the swift part and the easy part of the Lam Rim, very condensed forms of the Lam Rim. So that carries, there's kind of one outline of those 2 that carries an uncommon lineage of an experiential transmission, of experiential transmission. Is very powerful. Anyway, so we can do that another time maybe, but it's very, So this Pabongka Rinpoche's Lam Rim, because the origin is from this experiential teachings of the Lam Rim. Yeah, we have kind of textual explanation, then the master reads and then explains, like we do now more or less, right? It's kind of an explanation according to scripture. Yeah, so that's one aspect. And there's also experiential kind of teachings. So that's good to know for those who get more into Buddhism. So then the master just or the teacher uses an outline. And then according to the outline, from the experience of previous masters and pit instructions, it will be explained. So it carries kind of blessing, uncommon. So there's a text like that as well. Maybe one day we can do. There's a kind of Mati Sabje. It's kind of the Mati. Anyway, that's too much detail for the time being. We do one day. So then we have to know where we are in the Lam Rim. That's where we go back to. So if you read Pabongka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, there was one of the first books I read. You see what happened? But no, when I met the Dharma talking about imprints, or I don't know, I was a dog or something, maybe in Lhasa, I went around Sera. That caused me to have some imprints, probably. So then when I went into the Dharma, then after 3 months, I was really into it. I already want to become monk and everything, but then my teacher told me, no, wait, you go too quick, you take your time, you know. So then my mother asked me, what do you want for your birthday? It was also 3 months. And I said, I want to have this book, you know, Pabongka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. It's a very good overview of the Lam Rim. Anyway, for you, it's good to read those things. Then you know which model fits where, you know. So if you go back to the foundation of all good qualities, then it starts with the teacher, because without a teacher, we cannot really progress. And that's also true from a worldly perspective. You know, without being explained certain aspects of education, then all by yourself it's difficult. So you have to depend. And then in spirituality, so there's different levels of a teacher. You know, in the secular or universal aspects of Buddhism, then it's just like, teacher same as in Kazakh. A university or college, so this kind of Buddhist mind science, Buddhist psychology, in a very universal aspect, nothing to do with practice as such. But when it comes to practice, then it's quite important. Also, we see in other, other forms of faith in the Hindu tradition, for example, it's a lot of emphasis. So that's why it's being considered as the first subject to rely upon. So that's where we read, the foundation of all good qualities is the kind of perfect guru, directed to devote to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. So then, in order to rely upon a teacher, first you check, as the Buddha said, you know. You don't accept any teacher just like that, especially in the spiritual path, you know. Same when we have a sickness, we have check with the doctor and maybe have a second opinion, right, before we make a decision for for a kind of for kind of treatment. So here it's even more development of mind. So we need a kind of checking out the teacher. You know, that's His Holiness Dalai Lama also makes a lot of comments about that. That it's very important to check. So anyway, we did one model about that, but just to make the picture complete. So that's the first level. Then if you checked well, and then you can dedicate yourself or have a discriminating factor. A particular person is your teacher. Yeah? So that's the first verse, or the first part of the Lamrim, which we covered in one of the models, I think the second or third one or fourth, something like that. Yeah. Then we went into potential. Yeah, we started with the mind and its potential, remember? And then we also talked about verse number 2 in the Foundation of All Good Qualities, where it says, understanding precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once. It's greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. So then we saw having all those 18 aspects of the freedoms and endowments, and then the masters of the lineage in modern times, they add number 19. Yeah? So to have the 18 is not easy. The majority of the people in this world, although they're human, they don't have this interest in spirituality. Yeah? So, and all the other factors are not really, complete. So number 19 is time. Especially in modern times, everything becomes very easy, but people don't have time. You see? When I came to London last year, then Radek, who was also here on the other side of the screen, then he took me for a round one day, and then you could pay with, show me how you could pay, because we had a coffee somewhere. This was my first tourist trip. Yeah. The second was with my mother, and then, yeah, now I'm walking a bit more than before. But, so you could pay like that. So for coffee, I thought, wow, I never saw that before. So I thought, wow, life becomes so easy in the West, you know, everything out. And then I got this kind of Monzo account. Before, I had a very simple living kind of way of living. Yeah. So this kind of high-tech stuff, everything's so easy, like that, you know. But then people don't have time because they're so busy with all these kind of gobbly-goo kind of, you know, social media business. And yeah, so that means that, yeah, it's difficult for people to find time. So you're very fortunate to be here on the other side and to dedicate quite some hours yesterday and today. You know? Majority of people, they like to be busy with other things. And then the question is that busy with other things is more constructive to achieve happiness or not, because that's why we're here, right? We all want happiness and don't like suffering. Yeah. So then you can see it's not that easy to find this kind of situations. To what I said yesterday, we kind of, people think we cuckoo, we crazy to do this. So once a connoisseur told me, there was a Dutch film crew who made a documentary, and they say, yeah, Parokabo means kind of a white crow. There's no, all crows are black, right? There's no white ones. So that means in Tibetan they're the same. A white crow means there's no white crows, means very rare. Yeah, so similar thing for precious human rebirth is even more rare than a white crow. Yeah, so that's verse number 2, to see that we have this incredible opportunity and that we have to take the essence, because we don't know when we get another opportunity in the future. And especially if you really go into depth in the Lamrim, then you can see how difficult it is. You know, if you really study precious human rebirth, and what we do yesterday and today is actually the impossible became possible. We sometimes don't realize that. Yeah. Yeah. So then we take the essence by seeing this precious opportunity, right? And then this precious opportunity is not going to last forever. That's why verse number 2, it says life is impermanent. Yeah, it's like a water bubble. So life is impermanent refers to, you know, that death is definite. You know, there's no escape, right? Yeah, there's no escape. And it's not only there's no escape, or it's coming closer. It's not going to be further away every year we have a birthday. I know people have birthday parties, but I mostly forget. When I'm in the monastery 20 years, sometimes I saw a missed call of my mother. I think, why is she calling today? And then I just realized, like by midday, that actually was my birthday that day. Yeah. But anyway, having a birthday is, yeah, it's just another, year closer to dying. Basically, that's what it is. Yeah. So yeah. So that's meaning that is definite. Life is impermanent. And not only it's definite, but also it's when we die is uncertain. The time of death is uncertain. So that's why it says, it's like a water bubble. It's very easy to die. Yeah. And then remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, then you see, then we come to the point. So after death, it says, just like a shadow follows the body. Like when you walk, you have to have sunshine. But when you walk with sun, then you see wherever you go, the shadow comes without effort with you, right? So same thing. When we die, then where are we born is that's not too difficult to get another rebirth. It's very easy. To die is very easy. To get a rebirth is even, it's also very easy. You don't have to put much effort. It just happens to you. Same as we fall asleep, right? Then when we fall asleep, then the period of the sleep just happens. Yeah. So, and the dream just happens. So that means that when we die, it says the results of black and white karma follow. So that means like where your body goes, in a similar way, the shade comes. So when you die, in a similar way, where you're born depends on karma and afflictions. What's the throwing karma, for example, we explained yesterday, depends on karma, right? What are the corporate conditions or what's the completing karma? It depends on black and white karma or negative and positive karma, right? So, yeah. So many people think, we can choose where to be reborn, but if you have the power to choose what to dream, then we're gonna talk about things. But if you don't have the power to choose what you're gonna dream tonight, then it's a different story. So that means that the next life, so death and impermanence is something very powerful meditation to contemplate. Most people would think about death and impermanence in a constructive way, then their life changes for the better. They become more spiritual and so it's kind of, a reason why. Anyway, we talked about that in one of the previous models. The previous one, right? Death and rebirth. Yeah. You see, my mind is like a sieve. It's just a month ago. But yeah. So, So then when you die, then black and white karma, decides where you are reborn and where you are reborn and what kind of conditions you're facing. So that's what we talked about yesterday. Yeah. So we also saw that when karma is completely complete with those 4 factors, then it produces this kind of throwing karma with the 12 links at the level of the second link, those who are interested, and then it becomes kind of establishing karma at the links of grasping and craving and becoming. Right? So the becoming aspect, or sometimes we translate it as existence, that's a kind of a link that produces or has the power, it's kind of, we say, increases the power of propelling actually to the next life. So this establishing karma, we call that. In Tibetan, the karma that establishes a new rebirth. So, and then that depends on positive and negative karma, as we discussed. So from the point of view, either virtue or non-virtue, when all those factors are complete, that's a possibility of being thrown in a future existence. Then where we are, then there's conditions that makes the environment, as we discussed yesterday, right? Completing karma. We saw there's different possibilities between a good rebirth and good completion karma, like a human being with a lot of good things in life, or good throwing karma and bad completion karma, like you're being born in a place with a lot of lack of food or lack of medicine, you know, a lot of sickness. Yeah. Or being born with negative throwing karma, but positive completion karma, like Dorje the cat. You know, you saw him sitting, and now he is somewhere else to enjoy his life. So, and when he's hungry, he asks for food, and he gets food. So it's kind of, yeah, quite a, yeah. So that's kind of a bad throwing karma, or negative throw, the result of negative throwing karma, but good completion karma, right? And there's also the dogs in India on the streets who have, you know, negative throwing karma and negative completion karma. You see? So there's 4 possibilities between those 2. You saw that? Yes, it will be one of the questions. And then what is then neither? What is neither of those 2? You see? That's debate. There's A and B. What is A and what is B? What is both? What is the one and not the other? And what is the other and not the one? And what is neither? You see? So what is neither of the 2? Dorje, yeah, no, Dorje cat is a result, but yeah, so Dorje cat we don't put. So we put something else, like the horns of a rabbit, for example. They think, why is he talking about the horns of a rabbit? Because they don't exist. You know, rabbits, they don't have horns, right? You know, and His Holiness, when some people in China thought His Holiness is like the devil, you know, they you know, had some kind of social media saying that the Holiness is like a devil. So then when His Holiness met with people from midline China in the US one day, then His Holiness came out of a plane like this. Do I look like this? Yeah. But the horns of a rabbit also don't exist. Yeah. So that means there's a very classical example in debate. You know, so the horns of a rabbit is neither of those 2. It's just kind of logic. You know, so there's many interesting stories to the horns of a rabbit, because when I was just into Tibetan Buddhism, I got a picture before we had this kind of, you know, it was 1994 or something, 5, before, you know, Photoshop and all this kind of programs were well known. So there was a rabbit with the horns. So then I showed my Tibetan friends. I said, you always say horns don't have rabbits. Also, the other way around, rabbits don't have horns. But look, and they looked, oh, is it really true? They said, but it was a fake image, of course. But anyway, so yeah, that's debate style. Yeah, so it's fun, as you can see. Sometimes it can have great fun. So back to the serious business of karma, then yeah, we have completion karma and throwing karma, as we discussed, based on having those 4 factors complete, or 1, 2, or 3 missing, yeah, as we discussed yesterday. Then next it says in that same text, Foundation of Good Qualities, finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be careful, to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. You know? So that's exactly, if you really have firm conviction in the law of cause and effect, then you be more careful, because you understand there's a result coming from a cause. So yeah, everything is a nature of interdependence, and we cannot escape that nature, right? So yeah, that law we cannot change, as we talked about a few times, but we can act according to that law and make sure we get you know, the right conditions for, you know, future development. You know? Yeah, so that's how we engage in these kind of practices of law of cause and effect. So yeah, there's other aspects next to this kind of completion karma. Also, there's other aspects to that as well. Yeah, there's 2, yeah, it's 2 or sometimes 3. Yeah, so 1, if you have another division, then 1 actually is this kind of, we just talked about already, is this completion karma that causes the environment, right? Yeah, so if you say that causes the environment, the completion karma, that causes the environment. There's 1 aspect of a threefold division, meaning what kind of results are there in relation with the cause. So this one is then the 3rd one of the completion karma that creates a particular situation we are in, temporarily or long term. So then there's also 2 other aspects to that. So you can write down, you know, next to your notes, about throwing karma and completion karma. So next to completion karma, there's two other aspects of a result in accordance with the cause. Yeah? So there's an action. One is action or activity. So that had nothing else to do than habituation patterns, right? If you habituate yourself quite regularly to a particular habit, then that will come up again and again and again. So that means the results of that habit or that action is in accordance with the cause. Because at the time of the cause, in previous lifetimes, you have acted in that way. For example, some children, they like to kill insects, you know, or kill creatures. Some children, they don't like to do that. They like to save. Very interesting. Yeah, so that means kind of as an act of an habituation pattern, maybe from previous lifetimes. That's how we, as Buddhists, describe it, right? Yeah. So that's an act or interest in particular fields, you know, like Mozart, for example. You know, to be such an incredible, knowledgeable person when it comes to composition, and at a very young age. So we can say, where does that come from? You know, so yeah, it can be. And as in the Buddhist tradition, there's a huge amount of stories. You know, so that's by the power of habituation, by the power of habituation of listening to teachings again and again and again. Then seeds are planted, and things become easier over lifetimes. It's kind of, if you do this again and again, a few decades, next lifetime you do it again in a few decades, lifetime after, then you can imagine the mind becomes very stable in that direction, right? Yeah, so that's, if you take rebirths, as we discussed last weekend, into consideration, and then there's an incredible opportunity to develop, you know? So, yeah, it's a big picture, as we discussed a few times before. So, the other point is the action in accordance with the cause, or in accordance, yeah, so action or activity, yeah, so that's another point to think about. And then experience, that's another sometimes term you come across. An experience in accordance with the cause. Yeah? So we experience different things in different ways, yeah? By depending on causes being created in the past. Yeah, and yeah, karma is very complex because certain people, while facing the same kind of situation, some people can deal with it much better than others. Like with the lockdown recently, some people, they freak out when they're all by themselves, and some people really enjoy to be by themselves. Yeah? I fall in this last category because the more I'm by myself, the happier I become. Yeah. So yeah, because I find it very constructive to you know, do some reflection, think. Yeah. So when I'm here last, was it in the lockdown for 2 months, I didn't talk to people, just stay in my room. You know, just, you know, reading things, contemplating things, do kind of practices. Yeah, but some people find it very difficult to do even for 10 minutes. On the other side, they're not here, they don't know that. So, but on the other side of the road, there's a couple, and they're from Italy, I think. I mean, they talk Italian. So yeah, they're always together and they talk a lot. And especially when nice weather, they go on the roof and then the whole area can hear them. so yeah, they sometimes, I looked at them, it may be difficult for them to be quiet or just sit by yourself. Yeah, for some people, very difficult. Yeah. So yeah, it can be very constructive. So that means there's an experience in accordance to the cause. You know, some people, they have habituated themselves. Like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, for example, you know, goes without sleep. You know, no sleep. Can you imagine? If we don't sleep for a night or two, how do you feel? When we were attending Lama Zopa Rinpoche for 2 weeks in Bulgaria, we only got about 2 hours every 24 hours, something like that. So after 2 weeks attending, you can imagine an ordinary being like myself, then when Rinpoche left, I think I slept for a week, day and night or something like that. Yeah. But Rinpoche never sleeps. Sometimes 10, 15 minutes in the car when Rinpoche is tired or something, but other than that, no. So also in the previous life, and also he never lays down, he always sits, never never lays down like we go to sleep, lay down, relax, lay down. Never does that. And in this life, already when he was in the early 20s. So people say in his previous lifetime he already did that. So it's kind of habituation. Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of an experience. Yeah. Or act in accordance with the cause. Yeah. Or we experience certain things in a different way than others. Yeah. So a lot of things. So also last weekend, some of you maybe attended or listened. So then also we talked about the mind-only school of Buddhist philosophy. So that's why to understand these aspects of habituation, of what appears to our mind, how we experience things, is very interesting material in the mind-only school of Buddhist philosophy. Yeah, so yeah, we talked about it quite a bit last weekend. Yeah, there's a few kind of types of imprints or karmic seeds, so to say, very well defined and described in this mind-only school of Buddhist philosophy. So the mind-only school of Buddhist philosophy is very close to what we at the present moment find in quantum mechanics, right? Whatever has been observed is influenced by the observer. Yeah, it's the correlation between consciousness and what has been observed is yeah, very evident. Yeah, so that's yeah, very interesting form of philosophy. So those who like later on to study more, they should study tenets. And so a few of you showed interest in the basic program, which is 5 years. Some people, I said already yesterday, 5 years, nothing. But yeah, so the basic program, also there's one text on Buddhist tenets, and it also talks about the mind-only school of Buddhist philosophy, next to other schools of Buddhist philosophy. Yeah. Yeah, so those who would like to attend, yeah, it's not a weekend, a month. Yeah, for people asked by email, but yeah, so it's for a few months, maybe a little bit busy, but yeah, I have to see and check. Those who are interested in the basic program, it's just like 2 months for the period you have the basic program. Oh, sorry, the Discovering Buddhism, so that overlaps a little bit, but yeah, so you have to see yourself. Yeah, the material to be covered in the first period of the basic program already the most covered in Discovering Buddhism, so it's not that much of new material as such. Though the presentation is more traditional presentation, but the background information you have, right? So yeah, it's just a matter of time. If you can dedicate in those during the periods of the Discovering Buddhism, which is like 3 months at a time, right? Then there's an extra weekend. And of course, you have to read a little bit of material. So that's similar to, yeah, I calculated just recently is about 30 pages a month. 30 pages a month. That is 1 page a day. Yeah. So yeah, it's discovering the basic program material initially. Yeah, for the first. Yeah. Anyway, so that's manageable, I think. But yeah, you just have to check because this Discovering Buddhism is just that's what it says. Discovering. The basic program is called basic, but actually it's not that basic. It's quite in-depth knowledge. But anyway, then you check. Yeah, we talked about. Yeah, just to let you know. Yeah, so there's 2 other aspects, right? An experience in accordance with the cause, because nothing happens. As we said, a particular seed can only produce a particular plant, right? So there's called an experience in accordance with the cause, or an activity, yeah, or habituation in accordance with the cause. Yeah, there's 2 other things I didn't mention yesterday. I was planning to mention today. Another aspect I was planning to mention today is with regards to the heaviness of the karma, right? We talked about yesterday, if all those 4 factors are complete and really completely is kind of heavy karma, it has the potential to throw you in another form of rebirth, right? So we had an explanation of one of the 10 non-virtues. So those 10 non-virtues, we just took one as an example, right? The act of killing, remember? With the basis, intention, deeds, and completion. Yeah? So if you read, for example, the Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, the text by Pabonga Rinpoche, it gives you these 4 points of each of those 10 non-virtues. Right? So then you read it and you can ID what does it mean with regard to killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, etc. So then you get a little bit idea. So to give a presentation to you yesterday and today, then we need more time. So that's why I just explained one, and because you're all very intelligent, so then you can see, by depending on a text like that, how that relates to the other 9 aspects of the non-virtues, right? So you have to do a little bit of reading yourself, because only coming here and then listening to, you know, my blah, 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 and then, you know, that's, you get something, but you don't get a complete picture, right? For me, it's kind of try to give people some yeah, the needed information, but of course, you have to read a bit more to get a complete picture, right? Yeah. So then, in order to make a karmic action more complete, yeah, that's another few points I like to discuss. So there's 6, not 2, not 4, 6. Yeah. So from the point of view of its nature, number 1, point of view of its nature. For example, as we see in the 10 non-virtues, right? The physical 3 are more heavy than the 4 of the speech. Yeah, it's heavier karma to kill another person than to say nasty things to another person, right? Yeah, so that's why that division is there. So from the nature, yeah, killing is more negative than, you know, lying, something like that, right? Generally speaking. So there's the first point. It acts from the point of view of its nature. There's a difference in heaviness. And as for positive things, same true. If you make, you know, offerings to a person who, you know, who can do a lot for society, like a spiritual master or something like that, or you make an offering to, you know, a person who doesn't really need something, or you make an offering to a beggar, or you make an offering, you know, a beggar who's really in need, or a person who's really in need, or an organization. Yeah, if you make a donation, for example, make a donation to Trump's kind of election, or you make a donation to a charitable organization who helps poor people in Africa, right? So the amounts you send from your bank account is the same, but the organization you make a donation towards too has different aspects of working either for, you know, for benefit of a large number of people, or just, yeah, for other purposes. Yeah. So anyway, it's just my own deluded mind, but yeah, you can think like maybe like that. Yeah. So that means that as from its nature. Yeah. Yeah, but it's also that example I just gave also in relation with the object as well. So that's number 2, the object. Yeah, so the first example, maybe a better example, is just keep by killing and lying, or the opposite, the positive things of that. Abandoning killing is more virtuous than abandoning lying, for example, right? Yeah, so yeah, one way you can see similar, yeah, relationships. So the next point, from the point of view of its object, yeah, that's actually more with the Trump and the organization, the charitable organization for Africa, for example. Yeah, so certain objects are more, if you make offering to certain objects, creates more merit than to other objects. So then maybe the Trump versus helping out in Africa example can, from a neutral perspective or from a universal perspective, right? But there's also all objects, you know, for a Buddhist practitioner, you know, the Buddha, the scriptures, the teachers, they are incredible objects, you know, holy objects, you know, to make offerings towards too, in which regards with, there's a bigger accumulation of merit because of the results, yeah, the power of the object. Yeah, so that's number 2. Yeah, and then also for killing, same thing. Yeah, so from the second point, object, as we discussed yesterday, it's more heavy to kill a human being than it is to kill a mosquito, right? Because the potential for a human being to develop in the spiritual part is much greater than for a mosquito, right? So that's the second point. From the point of view of the object, there's a differentiation between heavy or negative. Oh, sorry, heavy or less heavy, right? So that's true for negative karma of the act of killing, either human or kasa mosquito, and same true for, for positive things, right? To abandon the act of killing of humans or act of killing of mosquitoes, or to make offerings, to holy objects. Yeah. So that's number 2. Yeah. Then number 3 is by the power of motivation, right? If you give something to an organization, for example, on your app, then you can just, oh yeah, let's donate, and you donate like that. It's good, no? But you can also just sit down and think, oh, now I'm going to donate to this organization, and by making this donation, may I be able to help all sentient beings to eliminate all forms of suffering. You generate that kind of motivation, then you donate, and then you dedicate. You see? You see that at that time, the motivation becomes more powerful. And then especially if you contemplate a little bit longer about the need, yeah, so yeah, then you can put things into practice, then the outcome will be much more profound than just donating. Yeah? Donating by itself is, of course, is virtue, right? Especially in Western country, a lot of generosity is being practiced in this way. Yeah, so easy with your app. So, but then if you just make sure you have the right motivation, then it can also become stronger, because the motivation becomes stronger. Yeah, so if you motivate for the benefit of all sentient beings without exception, you can imagine that's, because all sentient beings are countless in number. So then also the causes for happiness also countless, right? Motivation. Yeah, and then that's number 3, right? Yeah, then number 4 is the deed, the way you do it. Yeah, so in India, for example, you have the beggars on the street, you can just throw the money in their lap like that. You can do that. Or you can, respect, because all the human beings, right? You can respectfully offer it, so that's how we engage, yeah, the behavior of the deed. Yeah, so that's true for something positive. Yeah, offer with respect, not they lower or whatsoever. Every action is like that. If you want to talk with a person, then just chat. And then make sure you do it in a correct way of having respect and mutually respect. Yeah, or in a negative way, same thing. If you kill another human being, but you do it in a very nasty way, right? Torture, and then of course it's heavier karma, right? Yeah, so that's number 4. Yeah, the behavior of the deed. Yeah. Then number 5 is the frequency. How many times you do act in a particular way? Of course, they will add up. Yeah. So that's number 5, the frequency, or how would say another word for frequency? Kind of, yeah. Yeah, the habituation of doing it again and again and again, or not doing it again and again, right? So that also makes a kind of difference in the heaviness of that particular karma. Yeah. And then number 6 is opponent powers. I think we can translate. Yeah. So we all know about opponent powers of purification, right? The 5 opponent powers. Yeah. So if you do something negative, like the act of killing, but there's no regret at all. Yeah, you see that sometimes in the news. Person commits a murder and there's no regret. They still in court think they did the right thing. Yeah, so if you don't have regret, then the killing becomes more heavier than when you have regret, right? Yeah, because regret is a possibility to change. Yeah. So that's true for something negative. Yeah, if you don't have regrets for something that is negative, it becomes heavier. Yeah. But if you regret, you do something positive, then also the positive act is not that heavy. Yeah, if you just made a donation to an organization, you said, "Oh, I should have done this. I should do something else with my money." So you have a kind of regret. You made an offering to an organization, right? So then the act is not complete. In the sense, if you rejoice, as we just talked about, you rejoice in positive things, and you have regret about negative things, right? You don't do it the other way around. If you do it the other way around, then you can see that the positive things are not, you know, very strong, and the negative things become stronger. If you rejoice in negative deeds and have regret over positive deeds, that's maybe not really the right way forward. Because then, if you have regret over positive things, then it will prevent you in the future to do that again, right? Yeah, you see that? Yeah, so that's why don't regret positive things. Yeah, rejoice. Of course, if things not completely done right and the outcome is different than expected, then still think, oh, they had a good intention, and next time may the outcome be better, or something like that, right? As we discussed yesterday. So don't regret positive things and don't rejoice in negative things, because that will, we just discussed, right? An habituation or an activity in accordance with the cause. We just discussed, remember? Yeah, so that means if you rejoice in something negative, then automatically there's an interest of doing it again. Because things we like to do again. Yeah, if you go to an all-night long party and you really enjoy it a lot, you want to do that again next week, right? If you do a retreat or a meditation and it's like, oh, that was beneficial for my mind, somewhat satisfaction. So then you want to do it again, you see? Yeah, so rejoice in the positive things. Yeah, that's, we talked about, Lama Tsongkhapa said, rejoicing is a very easy way, without effort, to accumulate merit. You know, you can just sit on your sofa, as you can see some people, and then you can sit with a cup of tea or coffee, with a biscuit, and then just think, oh, nice, if people do something positive, you know? Yeah. Or you can just read a biography. I find always very inspiring. When I was in the monastery, and sometimes, you know, if you stay for 20 years in one place, and you know, you have a heavy schedule, six days a week, until, you know, most days until 11, 12 o'clock. It's kind of, you know, it's not kind of, oh, let's watch TV or something. There's no time. Forget the TV, first of all. But there's no time. So you can imagine that at one point of time you think, oh, wow, I'm a bit down. I mean, you don't think like that, but you just are down or something, you know. So then sometimes, yeah, and then living with roommates in very small rooms. You know? One of my friends from the Netherlands, she worked for the healthcare there. She came to my room one day. She said, oh, how can you live here? Yeah, so anyway, I only lived there for a few years, but yeah, so sometimes the mind is a bit kind of down. And then read these biographies, you know, of these masters of the past. Very inspiring, you know. And then rejoice in what they've done. And then the mind uplifts, you know, it's easy. Yeah. Then effort comes. If effort is there, effort means pleasure in doing virtue. So it's a very good thing to actually talk about when we talk about karma. Yeah, so effort doesn't mean a workaholic. You know, a manager who works like 9-10 hours a day to finish his project. That's just hard working. You know? The real Buddhist definition of effort is to enjoy virtue. Yeah, pleasure in virtue. Yeah, so that's why I said yesterday in discussion, did you enjoy it? You know, so that means if you enjoy discussions instead of getting fed up with, you know, because you have your own view and that's always the best one, you know, because yeah, it's my view and my view is the best. So sometimes we think like that. We're not open to other views because we think we know it already. So that's an obstacle. That's an obstacle to knowledge, we say. Yeah. Pride, you know, pride is an obstacle to knowledge. So you need to be open. Yeah. So that's why if you enjoy discussion, you know, joke around, and because it's not all that, samsara is difficult, right? Suffering, death, impermanence, it's heavy material. But if you get depressed by studying it, then you're not going the right direction. So then think, yeah, it's what the Holiness says, if you have a problem like old age and you cannot really solve that problem, then you shouldn't worry about it too much because you cannot solve it. So, you know, just hanging there and move onwards. You know, that's kind of the happy mind approach. You know, yeah. We say in Tibetan, Nang Kipo. That's very essential. in our studies, to be Nang Kipo is very essential. To be kind of easygoing and just, you know, whatever, kind of, you know, difficulties are there, kind of, yeah. Go. You see, my head still goes like that from the habituation of the last 20, 25 years. Yeah. Yeah. So, so there are how many? 6. You got the 6 points? Yeah? That's, that's, then basically I covered most of the material, the traditional kind of outline of the Lamrim. And all these points you can find back in the Liberation Palm of Your Hand and other texts of the Lamrim, the more elaborate Lamrim texts. But then we had to talk about purification, remember? Yeah, because we just talked about rejoicing and regret. Yeah, regretting negative things and not to regret positive things. Yeah, so regret is a very essential point in what's the time? Yeah. So regret is a very important essential point in change. If you regret negative aspects or faults of yourself, then you will improve, right? If you never open about your own mistakes, you will never improve. If you always think, you know, that's why pride is kind of, we consider pride as a non-virtue. Pride is kind of an obstacle. Yeah, also there's one research, sometimes I read a BBC app, you know, the news, like 10, 15 minutes every day. And sometimes there's kind of reel, it's called reel, this kind of 5-minute slots of presentations. Very scientific, sometimes very interesting. So there was one presentation about being humble. Very interesting, scientific. No, this kind of completely researched. That a person who is, there was a name, I forgot the name, of a kind of impairment. People who are not humble, they think they know it all, but then they end up into trouble later on because they're not capable of solving certain points or problems in life. Right? Very interesting. There was a name for that, named after the person who invented that kind of impairment. But anyway, so that means that pride, for example, is a kind of an obstacle to progress, right? You never, because if you think you know everything already, then you're never open to learn more, and then, you know, you can misjudge yourself, and because of that, you cannot be very successful. So that's a scientific evidence of being humble. The title of that is Being Humble, Being Smart. Very interesting. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so that's why it's important to regret things, negative things, and faults. So that's why regret among the 4 opponent powers is the most important one. Yeah. So we know from the point of view of purification, what are the 4 opponent powers? Yeah. 1, 2. I can't hear you, but if people do like this, then I see them thinking. Yeah. Some people yeah, okay, good, very good. Yeah, so that means, if I really look carefully, then I can know what you say. But yeah, so what are the 4 opponent powers? Regret, right? Yeah, is the most important one. Yeah? And then the power of reliance, the second one. First, regret. Second, reliance. Then the third one is the antidote. Yeah, so in regard with the question of yesterday, the antidote. Yeah. And the fourth one, what's the fourth one? Is resolve. Well, a promise not to do it again. So first, regret means to have an insight. Yesterday we talked about a little bit about 2 aspects, remember? His Holiness used to talk about quite a bit for a certain period of time means behavior and the view. The behavior, ahimsa, not harmfulness, right? And the view being the view of interdependence. And then we saw, why do we behave in a way not to harm others? Because by the power of the view of interdependence, we see that if somebody else harms us, or sends something nasty to us, we don't like that. And because of that understanding, we don't harm others, right? It's very logical, yeah? Because we're all human beings, we all have the same form of feelings and wishes for happiness and not wanting suffering, right? We're exactly the same in that regard. Yeah, so that's why His Holiness talked about it quite a bit. By understanding the view of interdependence, we behave in a particular way. Very interesting, yeah? Very logical. Yeah, so that's the behavior. Yeah. So why did I tell the story? Because because if you've done something wrong or something negative in relation with somebody else, you regret for a particular reason. Because if somebody else does something like that to you, also you don't like that. So in relation with the same kind of logic, we generate regret, right? That's one thing, one aspect of regret. Another aspect of regret is not to like to experience the result of that negative deed. Yeah, so the first aspect of regret we just talked about is kind of a universal one. Yeah, you don't even have to talk about karma to understand that for a common person on the street, right? That you regret in order to change. You want to change, you commit, you acknowledge you made a mistake. And why did you make a mistake? Because if somebody else did something similar to you, you didn't like that, and that's why you don't do it to others. And now if you've done to somebody, so you regret it. You see that? Yeah. So that's a universal aspect of regret. So a more Buddhist aspect of regret is not wanting to experience the result of that act, right? In the future. By knowing karma, understanding that it will ripen in the future, you know? Yeah, and to prevent it from ripening, we have the four opponent powers. So we regret. Yeah, the power of regret, number one. And then another, I think, to be known is regret is not something like, oh, I did something wrong. I'm so bad. I only do things wrong. You know, that kind of low self-esteem. That is, that's not regret. That's not constructive thinking. You know, you can, yeah, you know where I relate to, right? Yeah, so that means that regret is a very, very kind of down to earth. I did something wrong. Why? Because of this. I shouldn't do this anymore. Like that. You see? Very constructive. Yeah, so that's real regret. Yeah? Because if you get low self-esteem, then the purification is not really very powerful. But if you have this kind of courageous attitude, I did something wrong, I know why I did it wrong, and from now on, I'm going to do something about it. You know, that's kind of moving forward, right? Yeah, so that's the real attitude of regret. Yeah, 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 that's regret. Then, second one, antidote, right? No, reliance. Very good, yeah, very good. I see people really paying attention, writing things down. That's very good, yeah. So then you can write down and have tea. So reliance. So it says reliance. To rely upon. Yeah. So why is this also a very important purification factor? Because all negative deeds we've done, right? We've done in relation with others. Yeah. But also sometimes we have ourselves only a mental activity, but a lot of physical and verbal activity mostly done in relation with others, right? So that means that the power of reliance becomes a very essential point. Because before we harmed another person, and now we have an intention, at least an intention, if not the act, to help another person, you see? So that's why the power of reliance becomes a very powerful purification factor. Instead of harming a person, we now decide to help a person. That's a kind of universal explanation of reliance. The Buddhist explanation of reliance, because it's also good to know, and you have to know that because it's Discovering Buddhism, So that means that there's two aspects to the power of reliance on the Buddhist point of view. Yeah, so, yeah, very interesting today. We have a universal aspect and a Buddhist aspect. Yeah. So the Buddhist aspect of reliance, yeah, for regret you got it right, kind of universal one and a Buddhist one. Yeah, so now from the point of view of reliance, you have the universal one and now the Buddhist one. Yeah, so the Buddhist aspect of reliance means that we have done something in relation to other persons, right? So other persons are twofold, Buddhas and sentient beings. Yeah, a person doesn't mean a human being or such. A person means, definition of a person in Tibetan, or so in, not Tibetan, in Buddhism, it comes from the Sanskrit and the Pali tradition, right, of the Buddhist teaching. Is a definition of a person. So that means, that means a self that is imputed upon any of the five aggregates. It means a person is kind of mere imputed upon body and mind of a particular individual, right? So Buddhas have body and mind, and sentient beings have body and mind. So there's a twofold division. A Buddha is completely enlightened, and a sentient being is not enlightened. You see? Yeah. So we always have done negative acts in relation with either of those two, because there's no other beings with consciousness than those two. Right? So then we say, as a Buddhist, in order to purify things in relation with the Buddha, or images, or disrespect, you know, or we met maybe the Buddha and the Buddha wanted to help us, but we didn't have the karma and we just, you know, told him goodbye, you know. That means that in order to purify disrespect, you know, as a Buddhist, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I think that's the next model, actually, refuge. Yeah, I think so. No? Karma? No, yeah, anyway. Yeah, I don't have the outline here, but yeah, so that means taking refuge in the Buddha, right? So that's one aspect of reliance, to purify those things we've done in relation with the Buddha, negative things. But even more important, according to many masters of the past, including Shantideva, is the power of reliance with regard to sentient beings, you know, because now we promise to help sentient beings, yeah, by generating those kind of states of mind we classify as compassion or love and kindness. Yeah, compassion is defined as the wish for others to be free of suffering, right? So if you have a wish for others to be free of suffering, that's the opposite of harming others, right? Or not? Right? So that means it becomes a power of reliance to purify negative deeds in relation with sentient beings. Yeah? So we have harmed all kinds of sentient beings in the past, it's beginner's lifetime. And now we promise to help all sentient beings without exception, to free them from their suffering. So that's why Shantideva says, if you generate not only love and kindness and compassion, but the mind of bodhicitta, yeah, that wants to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, in order to liberate them from their suffering, and for that purpose you want to become a Buddha, that mind of bodhicitta is an incredible, powerful tool with regard to this power of reliance. That's the logic behind it. And that's also why Shantideva says there's no more powerful purification than meditating on bodhicitta. Exactly because of this power of reliance. Yeah? So when you read Bodhisattva Charyavatara, those who done maybe, they did here with a few students, the Brave Heart, I think we had a title, right? Yeah. So it's very successful, very good. Shantideva's text, Bodhisattva Charyavatara, His Holiness Dalai Lama says, is the most profound text when it comes to generate this body-mind and activity of aspiration, you know, very inspiring. So also in the basic program, we couldn't do that. Yeah. I'm advertising something, you can see, yeah. Only for those who have time. Yeah, that's another time. So, yeah, so that means that this bodhicitta or compassion or love and kindness, right, actually falls in this category of the power of reliance. Because when we harmed another person by negative act, now we have a wish for others to be free of suffering, right? Comprende? Yeah? Okay. So, yeah, there's a power of reliance. So there's a universal one and the Buddhist one. I explained two of them, both. Because some people, they don't like to become a Buddhist. And it's perfectly fine. You don't have to become a Buddhist. Also, when you yourself feel like, wow, Buddhism is amazing, and you talk about it with your friends, then they might not be interested at all. I had the same problem when I was young. And I was into Buddhism, and I told my friends, oh, wow, this is amazing. But they were not interested. So there's no point in talking about it, right? So then, if you talk about these universal aspects, then there can be benefit, right? Because you don't have to become a Buddhist to get some benefit out of these kind of, and that's why His Holiness very vast vision of this kind of secular or universal aspects of Buddhist mind, science, and philosophy. Very interesting. Yeah. Anyway, it's just for your background to know that, yeah, you can, on different levels, we can help people in society, right? Okay. Yeah, so power of reliance. That's clear, those two? Regret and reliance, yeah? So next one, antidote, I said, right? Antidote. Yeah. So that means to have, yeah, kind of opponent force that has the power to purify. Yeah. So there's universal things, basically every positive state of mind, right, is opposing a negative state of mind, or not? Yeah. So that means that every virtuous thought purifies non-virtuous thoughts. You know, every constructive way of thinking opposes destructive emotions, right? Yeah. So that's a universal aspect. Yeah. Then the Buddhist aspect of this point is same thing. Every virtue purifies every non-virtue. Yeah? So the antidote is virtuous practices. And that can be meditating on bodhicitta, for example, or meditating on emptiness, or reading the sutras like we do. You see the text behind? You know? I'm almost done. Only a few left. So today is the last day of the reading at 5 o'clock. We've done it for the whole month. Initially, I was thinking, oh, I do it only for 2 weeks. You know, I'm a lazy kind of person. But then, yeah, there was some interest, and then I thought, okay, why not keep going? And then we kept going for the whole month. Is this important or not? It's in Spanish, no? Yes. It's okay, yeah, okay. So we did it for the whole month, and tonight we're going to dedicate all the merit. So reading sutras is being considered as very virtuous practice because it's the origin, you know, of the teachings of Buddhism. It comes from the Buddha's teaching. So there's kind of 108 volumes, including oral transmissions, still existing of all the Buddhist teachings, like volumes like this thick, right, in Tibetan leaf, from the Sanskrit, translated from Sanskrit, and there's, you know, there's like 200 something volumes about the commentaries of the great Indian masters. Yeah. Yeah, so reading those kind of scriptures, or reading Lamrim, you know, or doing the things we do yesterday and today, that's actually a purification practice because it purifies negative deeds, you know. So yeah, there's all kind of classifications, or yeah, I just forget the lists at the moment because you have already too many lists, I think. Yeah, but just for the time being, think that these virtuous practices, you know, can be a purification from the point of view of the antidote. Yeah. Then more traditional Buddhist practices, next to meditating on bodhicitta, meditating on emptiness, meditating on the Lamrim, reading the sutras, right? There's many other things that can be done as well, in combination with emptiness and bodhicitta, of course. Because if you don't combine it with emptiness and bodhicitta, then yeah, it doesn't have the power as such. So there are other practices that can be done. For example, purification practice Vajrasattva. Extremely powerful. I mentioned already yesterday the 21 times reciting the mantra. It helps not for negative karma to increase. If you recite that mantra 100,000 times, then it has the potential to purify all negative deeds, right? So why is that? You will ask. Will you ask that or not? Yeah. So because if you have here audience, it's more lively, you know. Now it's all people muted, and then I see people. So then I know that people want to have the answer. Okay. So that means that when Vajrasattva, the Buddha Vajrasattva, was still in training and not a Buddha yet, on the paths as a bodhisattva, right? Every day. And then their minds are mind-boggling. They have this bodhicitta in their mind, right? Spontaneous, even during sleep. For us, it takes so much effort to generate it, and then the moment you get up off your cushion, it's gone. You know that feeling? Those who did some retreat. So it means that the bodhisattva has this mind so habituated that it's always there. That means every act they engage in becomes a cause for enlightenment. That's very inspiring. So then, from that mind being generated until enlightenment is achieved, you know, there's text in the sutra that says 3 countless eons. It's a very long period of time, not just 1 or 2 lifetimes, many lifetimes, right? So in all those lifetimes, every day they make prayers. When I become a Buddha, whoever recites my mantra or who depends upon me, may all the negative karma be completely purified. You can imagine this potential build up over eons. It creates a kind of potential, you know. So that's all condensed within this 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva. So that means if you recite that mantra, there's great benefits. Then you can see, you know, if you do it correctly and you do it in a relaxed manner, don't get loom. Some people they push and you get loom, then there's no point. That's why I said, relax. So, but if you do it relaxed, but with the right intention, then people will see. Understanding Dharma, get a feeling of the Lamrim becomes much easier. You know? Because for us it's kind of, you know, climbing a mountain without hands. You know, very difficult. You know, but if you do a lot of purification, that's why many masters of the past, they've done so much purification and then they get it. You know, emptiness, same thing. We find it so difficult, so difficult. But then, of course, if you don't do purification, then of course it's difficult. So Lama Tsongkhapa, who was one of the top scholars in the whole country in Tibet, in his mid-20s, you know, then in his early 30s, he was so famous. He had thousands of students because of his knowledge of the Indian masters. It's mind-blowing. If you read one of his texts he wrote in his early 20s, it's like this, his mind must be kind of having memorized like 20-something commentaries, like this thick. Because the way he composed his text looks like it's just, you know, incredible masterpiece. There's a golden rosary of the Abhishamalankara, jewel ornament. Anyway, so then he asked Manjushri, Buddha, the Manjushri, because he could see Manjushri like you and me. You know, for us it's very difficult to even visualize Manjushri, but yeah. So then he asked Manjushri, do I have the view of Prasangika or Svatantrika Madhyamika? That's like the 2 highest views of ultimate reality of emptiness. Then Manjushri said, neither. Then he was a bit kind of shocked because he didn't expect that answer. And then he said, what do I have to do? I studied already so much. I read all the texts. Then Manjushri said, you do one thing. There's a kind of an Indian way of saying, when we went to the police, sometimes in early days to get our papers done, then sometimes the police will traditionally say, you do one thing. You know, so you have to, anyway, this is now Manjushri saying you have to purify and accumulate merit. You know, so then Lama Tsongkhapa went into this 4-year or so retreats and did a huge amount, especially prostrations, and also Vajrasattva, and also mandala offerings, and then he got it. You know, so our mind is thick. Sometimes my mind is very thick. I don't know about your mind, but if you do meditation, then sometimes it doesn't really come. The feeling or the reasoning, yeah, that's a sign of, you know, having a lot of kind of dirt in the mind, kind of obscurations, we say. So that has to be purified. You know? So then, if you do Vajrasattva, it's one of the things. Vajrasattva is amazing purification practice. Or prostrations. I think once last year, then we were here one day. I explained to a few of you how to do prostrations, right? Also prostrations every day. Even do full-length prostration every day with a mantra. Om Namo Manjushri, you know, that's incredible benefits. So, but if you do more prostrations, like accumulations of, you know, thousands of something like that, then with the visualization and recitation, then things will come, things will change. So that's why one of the last models talks about putting things into practice. You know, so that there's a lot of emphasis on Vajrasattva, a lot of emphasis on prostrations. Because we have to purify a lot. Yeah, remember, if you think from a Buddhist, this is a Buddhist, this is not universal, because people will say you're completely crazy when you talk about these things to a person on the street. You don't do that. But yeah, because you are discovering Buddhism, so you have to know a little bit about these points. Why is it so important? You know? So that means that if you, since beginner's lifetime, you have got this countless rebirths, and you've done so many things wrong, that in order to put your mind in a particular direction, you need to purify that. You need to get rid of all the garbage, you know, all the dirt. Yeah, so that's why purification is very essential. And I've seen people who, in the monastery, who do preliminary practices and see them debating and see them talking about it. It's a difference, really. People who don't engage in these things and just merely study, or a person who engage in purification practice, accumulation of merit, it's a big difference. You know? So in the understanding, not just the mere words, but the meaning. You know, so that's many lamas have proven that in the past. You know? Yesterday I was talking about Geshe-la Kunjo, you know, with the relics coming from the bones. He did so many Vajrasattva, so many prostrations, sets of 100,000, not sets of hundreds, sets of 100,000, right? And then things will happen. You see. So based on study and then doing these practices, then very beneficial. Yeah, if you do later on Lamrim retreats yourself, then also combine it with kind of these kind of practices can be extremely beneficial. Yeah, so yeah. Anyway, that's just for you to know that down the line when we, you know, when we study more and engage sometimes and we do some retreats, maybe we can organize. We can maybe one weekend or a few weekends. We can do preliminary practices, how to do it, you know, if people are interested later on. Yeah. So yeah, that's very essential. Yeah. So that's a lot of emphasis on that. So yeah. So that's the point of view of the antidote. Yeah. Antidote. So there's Vajrasattva, there's prostrations, there's a fire puja that can be done, Dojikadro. Very, very powerful. Yeah, there's many other things. Yeah. So after the break, we will do a short purification practice, so you can a little bit idea how to do it with the light, with Sakyamuni Buddha. Yeah? Antidotes. Then, after antidote, huh? Resolve. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, good. The power of resolve. So if I ask you the question, then you think about it, and then it stays better. If I just give a presentation, then it goes in, and then you write it down, but it leaves. It stays on the paper. Sometimes that happens like that. If you write down, but you don't think about it, then it stays on the paper. It doesn't go into the mind. You have to write down and you have to think about it. Right? Yeah, so the last one, the power of resolve, is also very important. You know, if you, from a, okay, I gave again a universal one and a Buddhist one. You can see. So if you see you made a mistake, you have regret over that, and you purified it and with positive thinking, and then you think, oh, okay, from now on, I'm not going to fall in the same trap again. I will improve. I will not do that again. Right? That's kind of universal, the power of resolve, or promising yourself not to do it again. Yeah. So then promise, meaning don't say, oh, I'm not going to get angry at this person anymore. Full stop for the rest of my life. You know, so that you cannot keep, maybe. You have to be honest, because if you can't keep it, then you say, oh, I cannot keep it anyway, forget it. Yeah, so then it doesn't have the power. So you have to promise it for the moment you have, you know, the mindfulness to be able to do it, right? Yeah, so that's a universal aspect, right? And the Buddhist aspect, very similar. You just promise not to engage in this negative deed for a particular period of time, or at least try. Yeah, I often tell the story that comes from His Holiness when we have, as monks and nuns, we have bi-monthly confession. We have a lot of vows, and of course, sometimes, you know, you break one or two because of, you know, eating at the wrong time and those kind of things. So then you confess. And then it says in the end of the ritual, but this also has these 4 opponent powers, do you see your faults as faults? And you say yes. And it repeats 2 times to make sure you saw the fault as fault. That means you generate regret. And then the last line reads like, do you henceforth restrain yourself? And then normally you say yes. You verbalize that in the ritual. And then this Geshe says, instead of yes, he came up and said, I will try. So His Holiness said, that's very honest. You know, but yeah, you got a point, I think. Yeah, so that means that, yeah, we try. Yeah, so that's the 4 opponent powers. Very important. I talked about it already a few times before, but yeah, with karma is one of the bullet points on the teacher instructions for the teacher. So I read those bullet points. Yeah. And I also talked about the importance of accumulation of merit and purification. So yeah, so I think it's time for a break, actually. What do you think? Yeah, a break. Have a cup of tea or coffee. So again, 20 minutes, is that okay?
Yes, Geshe-la.
Yes, okay. So see you 12.